Story 1. Having the train of thought. I am stressed and my family treats me like garbage. So I am going to take this frustration out on the only person in my corner. Story 2. She could not understand that I wanted companionship, if nothing else. I could deal with the dead bedroom and loneliness, but I could not deal with all that while you are not even nice to me or pleasant to be around. Story 3. Had enough manipulation. It was exhausting walking on eggshells. Preferred to be single than with her. About 6 weeks from getting married too. Dodged a bullet. Found my wife a year later. Married 15 years now. Never been happier. Listen to your intuition. Story 4. Just different life stages. I already had children. He wanted some in the future. He could not understand why I put my children first over going on dates. Now he is married to someone who shares his views, and he understands. He is a lovely man, and I am glad they are happy together. Story 5. I realized and accepted the belief that you must accept people where they are, not where you want them to be. She had deep-seated pain, suspicions, uncertainty, and fears that my simply existing could trigger. When I tried to help her with them, it was seen as an attack. You cannot help that. Just cut the line and let that tug go. Story 6. We were having issues, and he went interstate to give us a break. Then, I found on the laptop that he had joined dating applications while there and tried to arrange hookups, all while telling me he loved me. I ended the engagement that day. Story 7. He changed and became distant. I was basically begging him to notice me. Little did I know he was involved with another person. Years wasted. Story 8. I was a bad boyfriend and only wanted to spend time with her when it suited me. I was young and immature, but she was lovely to me. I did not deserve her. All she did was like me, and she ended up hurt because of it. I had the audacity to break up with her. We are now both much older and friends on social media. She is married and has children, as do I, and I am happy for her. To answer the question, she is my ex because I was selfish. Story 9. The first one cheated on me. The latest one performed tricks to create unnecessary drama out of thin air. Story 10. She was poisoning my food to keep me bedridden, so she could more easily have affairs with her coworkers behind my back. After that, I really did not think we had much in common anymore. Story 11. She cheated on me with my closest friend at the time while I was in the same house. I found out months later. Story 12. I supported her through law school, and a month before her graduation, she decided I was not a good fit for her future life. Story 13. Because I suspected her of cheating after she confirmed that she cheated on her ex with me, she ended up breaking up with me. However, he moved in that night, so there is your answer, I guess. Story 14. Because he trauma dumped, called it intimacy. Love bombed, called it devotion. Isolated me, called it protection. Manipulated me, called it consent. And when I finally broke down, he said I was too emotional to be taken seriously. So I left. Now he tells people I abandoned him at his lowest. I was the floor. Story 15. She decided to have a meltdown at my sister's wedding reception and started yelling at me. When I told her to pull herself together for a few hours and that we would sort things out afterwards, she got even angrier, saying, "So your sister is more important than me?" My sister was not more important, but you are no longer welcome if you cannot keep yourself calm for a few hours instead of embarrassing us both. Story 16. We just dealt with unhappiness differently. I wanted to keep working on the relationship because of the children and a sense of commitment and loyalty, and she wanted to be with other men. Story 17. Because I realized that being put down was something I could not tolerate, not even from the most skilled performer. Story 18. The reason my ex is because he lost something truly special. We spent a year and a half in a relationship that felt prolonged, and I often felt like I was the one holding on. We broke up twice, and both times he expressed doubts about our future, telling me he saw me more as a friend than a partner. I found myself in conflict with my parents, trying to convince them that our relationship was worth it. I loved him deeply, but I often felt that my feelings were not fully reciprocated. He did not share my dreams of a family or children and seemed confused about his emotions. Uncertainty in a relationship can create a lot of tension. There were moments of distrust, like when he went through my phone while I was asleep, and on the day he chose to end things, he seemed to place blame on me rather than taking responsibility. In the end, it became clear that we were not on the same page, and it was time to move on. Story 19. When she told me not to write any checks on our joint account, it was empty. People, keep at least one account in only your name with at least $10,000 in it. Story 20. You would think it was because he tried to drive us into a pond, but no. It was actually because he refused to move out of his ex-partner's family house. Story 21. She craves attention and thought I would chase her. Absolutely not. I am not the type to add extra stress to my life. Story 22. Communication breakdown led to resentment. Small issues and misunderstandings festered until they became unforgivable obstacles, and trust in each other was broken. Story 23. He would go days without texting or calling and thought I was clingy when I just wanted to go on a date once a month or so. I found my now husband 3 months after breaking up with that person. Story 24. She wanted children. Now there is a compromise one cannot get through. Instead of keeping her childless and unhappy, I broke up with her. Note she was in her late 30s. Story 25. She kept saying that whenever I went out to work at a hospital, I was secretly hooking up with nurses, fellow medical students, and residents. She had access to my social media as well, and if any woman liked any of my posts, she would delete that post. She also deleted the numbers of women on my phone, which made professional relationships with the doctors very difficult. Then I found out she was cheating on me. Story 26. I suspect my wife wanted a child. When we met 12 years ago, we had agreed we would not have children. She left me one day with absolutely no warning, no argument, no threat, nothing. She just left, even leaving behind all of her belongings. Not long after, I heard she had a child through in vitro fertilization. If she wanted a child so badly, I wish she had at least brought it up again before leaving me. Very few people believe me when I tell this story. You might think there was more to it, but there really was not. I thought we had a great relationship. It was quite strange how it ended, and she never gave me any closure. Her family was baffled as well and had a lot of sympathy for me. Story 27. Got tired of the mood swings, passive aggressiveness, belittling, gaslighting, and threats. Should have left her sooner. Story 28. She was not a nice person, at least to me. Life is too short to spend with someone who does not respect you. Story 29. She would not respect boundaries or take accountability for the things she said and did. That behavior is not acceptable. One day, I realized I was bending myself backwards trying to make it work, but it was just making me miserable. I cut her off and things immediately started improving. Story 30. Because he chose to remain best friends with the ex who cheated on him, laugh out loud. Also, he lacked the maturity to step up, and instead, his emotional cowardice pushed me to my breaking point, contributing to the physical and emotional toll I ended up bearing because of him. Story 31. I broke my foot and went to my parents because he works 60 hours a week. He went on dating apps and found someone within that time. Story 32. I wanted only her, but she wanted every other guy except me. I am not sure how we ever got together in the first place. Story 33. We were never really compatible. She was not a bad person. We dated off and on, and then I got her pregnant. My withdrawal method was not effective at that moment. She wanted us to be together, but I did not. I eventually married her, thinking I could make it work, but I was never truly happy. We grew to always be at each other's throats and divorced after 10 years. Story 34. She told her former partner she still loved him. I believe her when she said that it was not in any kind of unfaithful way, but that is not something I will stand for, so I asked her to leave. No surprise, she went right back into his arms. I hope it works out for them. Story 35. I had a long commute so that we could live close to her job. I was scared during the trip home every day because I was not sure which version of her would be waiting for me, the one I wanted to marry or the soul-sucking one. She had sisters who were twins, but I had only met one of them. I used to think that it was really her who had the twin and that they were switching off to play a joke on me. Story 36. She was a habitual cheater turned prostitute, liar, drug addict, and manipulator despite being given many chances. Never again. I will end the relationship or stop responding at the first red flag. Story 37. He read my diary from when I was a teenager. He didn't like what he read and, out of the blue, proceeded to grab me by the neck with both hands, lift me up against the wall, and start strangling me. He is an avid bowler, so when I moved into my new house, the previous owners left a bowling pin, which I gave to him. He displayed it on his end table in the living room. When he was strangling me, it was right next to me, and as I felt myself blacking out, I was able to grab the pin and defend myself. He went to the hospital and then promptly to jail. Obviously, I broke up with him. Story 38. At the time, there was absolutely no reason, and it just seemed random and cruel. Eventually, he found out he was starting to accept his true sexuality and came out as gay about a year later. Story 39. I really don't understand why so many adults struggle with accountability in relationships. Best case. You make a mistake, admit it, your partner forgives you, life moves forward, and your conscience is clear. Worst case. You make a mistake, admit it, your partner doesn't forgive you, but life still moves forward and your conscience remains clear. I automatically lose respect for people who are too afraid to own up to their mistakes. I can still remember being in first grade. My teacher had a list of 5 classroom rules on the wall, and one of them always stuck with me. It's okay to make mistakes because that is how we learn. So why do so many people have such a hard time taking accountability? Cowardice. Story 40. He cheated on me with his ex-wife when I was pregnant. Of course, as soon as I left him, she dumped him too. That poor man. Story 41. He cheated on me a second time after I forgave him the first time, which caused us to break up again, and I was done. Story 42. She would never commit and was oddly standoffish. I remember one time I was hanging out with her and her family, and her mother invited me to a Halloween party coming up. Of course, I said I would love to come. On the day of the party, I showed up. The ex came up to me and asked, "Why are you here?" I told her that I thought I was invited. She walked off with her friends, which felt kind of weird. I apologized to her mother and left. The next day, it was like nothing had happened. After a few more situations like that, I decided to end it. I was not going to endure a relationship full of unreasonable ups and downs. If she did not want me around, then I was not going to impose my presence. She texted me a month later, "I am sorry I was so mean. We are cool now, but we do not talk anymore." Story 43. Late 20s. She is a police officer who works long hours, including overtime, to pay off debt. She also lives 1.5 hours away, is highly independent and avoidant. Being in a relationship was overwhelming given her busy life. She is trying her best for me and is seeing a therapist to help herself. She decided to pause the relationship to work on herself and improve her mental health, which has been causing her significant stress. She said she wants to be with me. If she were to be with anyone, it would be me. However, she knows she has things to work on before we become as serious as we were heading. It hurts because I know her feelings are genuine. Unlike most people who use this as an excuse, I know that is not the case. But it doesn't make it any easier. Story 44. Because he was conflicted from a past relationship and divorce, he had been through a lot but believed we could work through things together. Story 45. To provide some context, this happened around 2016 or 2017. I don't remember exactly when, but he was a truck driver I knew, dated, and broke up with. The reason I ended things was that we had been dating for about 6 months, and he brought up the idea of getting married. I wasn't ready for marriage, so I wasn't on board with the idea. A few days later, I found out he and his mother had planned an entire wedding in Mexico with his family. I am half Mexican and half white, but I look fully white. I don't have a passport and never wanted to go to Mexico for the wedding because my family wouldn't have been able to attend. I ended the relationship because of that. I did get married a few years ago to someone new, and we now have 2 cats and a house. I no longer speak to my truck driver ex, but I still talked to his dad since he was pretty chill and not unreasonable. Story 46. She just kept judging me until I was a shell of a person. The love faded from her side, so she left me. I deserve better. Story 47. He stood on my head, threw a plate at my head, threw me to the ground by my ponytail, and pushed me so hard in the ribs that he broke 2 of them. Story 48. He was very insecure, no matter how much I reassured him. If a man even looked at me, he would spiral and think I was leaving him for someone better, even though I always told him that I did not want anyone else. Since he was always worried about me leaving, he could never perform in the bedroom. After 4 years of forced celibacy, I decided I could not do it anymore. Story 49. We were only together for 2 months, but she expected me to have all my locations on in every app so she could see where I was and if I was online since we were in a long-distance relationship. If she saw I was online on Snapchat but hadn't messaged her back for a minute because I just wanted to watch some Spotlight, she would ask if I loved her and make me feel guilty. We would call sometimes, and one time I accidentally fell asleep before calling her after a very long day. She got angry at me, saying I lied to her and made me feel guilty. She would always bring up her ex and how she was cheated on, using it as an excuse for why she would never give me personal space. She would spam me on every platform, even if she knew I was in a lesson or studying, or just not on my phone in general. This honestly put me off because I just wanted space to do what I needed, and she'd get angry at me for not paying attention to her for 5 minutes. She kept accusing me of cheating, which I was not, because I was on good terms with my other ex since he is in my friendship group at school. Meanwhile, she was best friends with her ex, including sleepovers. She never addressed people at her school who admitted having a crush on her. She would just let it happen, even if it made both her and me uncomfortable. Although she said she trusted me, she never really did, which made me dislike her during our relationship and ultimately led to me leaving her. I asked for a few days break because she was overwhelming, and she kept pushing for me to message her again within a day or 2 when I specified I wanted about a week to recollect. She kept pushing, so that's when I ended things. She used me as a therapist for her old problems that she should have talked to a professional about. She also avoided arguments by waiting until I wasn't angry anymore instead of discussing things. She really drained me, and I am so glad I left her. Now, I am in a relationship with the best person in the world. We are very healthy together. He is the complete opposite of her, and I feel free and happy. Story 50. 6 months in, I found out he was a heroin addict and Satanist who stole from my child and family and blamed me for it. They still do not talk to me. Story 51. His kindness became controlling, which pushed me away. He also had underlying anger issues that were hidden by his charisma. Story 52. I caught her having cybersex with her friend online, who she had also sent postcards to during our honeymoon. I knew something was really wrong. While we were watching a movie on her laptop, I alt-tabbed into her emails. On the first page were a bunch of filthy emails. It had probably been going on forever. I just never looked. We were in a dead bedroom and she was, in a broad sense, controlling and abusive. But catching her doing that was what really hit me. Despite everything I did and had, she couldn't at least be faithful. Not even the bare minimum. She said it was the only time ever. I demanded she give me her phone immediately. About 10 seconds later, she grabbed the phone out of my hand. That was the real moment everything became irretrievable. I still tried to make it work for a year. You can decide to forgive, but you can't decide the trust. I looked for support online using an alternate account. Among it was me sharing my hurt about her cheating due to the dead bedroom. I said I had thought about cheating but didn't, and it hurt that she had done this. She found the account and said that me thinking of cheating was as bad as her actually cheating. That was when I realized she was truly insane. I thought for a long time I was a jerk for kicking her out, since she was clearly mentally ill. I felt guilty until I discovered that the next guy she was with, she harassed for money until he committed a gold heist. Unfortunately, this isn't the most painful breakup I've ever had. Story 53. During an argument, she wanted me to leave the house. I said no. I am still in the middle of this work, but I will leave in 45 minutes as I have an appointment to go to. She said no, she wants me out now. I then told her calmly, if you want distance, I will be glad to drive you to your parents, or I will certainly pay for her ride to her parents if she did not want me to drive her. She said no, I will bleed over the car. She was on her period. I said I do not really care, because if you want distance, then those are your options. Either leave now or just give me 45 minutes to finish up and I will leave and give you peace. She then says, you do not care where I bleed? I said, I think you are exaggerating your bleeding all over the car. She then goes, well, if you do not care where I bleed, how about I bleed all over you? She then put both hands in her crotch, rubbed her vagina, and then rubbed her blood-stained hands on my face and hair. Story 54. I got caught in a situationship. After months of dating, she randomly texted me asking, hey, so what are we? I never responded and moved on. Story 55. He tried to lock me in a basement. I finally realized that this was abuse and not love. After 8 months of stalking and a police report, it ended and we separated. Story 56. Bipolar disorder and chose to be unmedicated. Always accused me of cheating. Would threaten me with various things when I attempted to end the relationship. I eventually devised a scheme that made it appear I was cheating to fuel her bipolar disorder-driven paranoia to leave me. Story 57. When we discussed living together, I made it clear that I am a light sleeper and need to stick to a sleep schedule for work. She said no problem. Sleep schedule is good. Loud noise at night is bad. I visited for 2 weeks as a trial run of the living situation, and it went well. Both of us went to bed around 10 or 11 during the week, and sleep was quiet and peaceful. Then I moved in, and suddenly there was no sleep schedule. She came home from work and took a nap for an unknown amount of time. She woke up in the middle of the night when I was sleeping or about to go to sleep, and started doing laundry, washing dishes, and making a meal that used every dish, pot, pan, and utensil in the kitchen. Music played from her phone even though she owns a $400 pair of wireless Beats headphones. You might think, surely you could have a talk about the apparent miscommunication. But no. Instead of following the agreed terms for sleep and nighttime noise, she said she would do what she wanted when she wanted. And if it kept me up, too bad. Maybe you are wondering, could you have done something to mitigate the noise? Yes, I did. I put weather stripping and a door guard on the bedroom door, used white noise 2 feet from my head on the nightstand, and had a fan going full blast. But that did not drown out noises such as dishes clanging and music at full volume. If the circumstances had been different and we had not discussed this before I spent thousands of dollars to move in, we might have had a better conversation. But when her response to me asking her to stick to the original arrangement of not being loud after 10 or 11 p.m. is too bad, I'm going to do what I want. I lose interest faster than Leonardo DiCaprio when his girlfriends turn 25. I also want to do what I want when I want, like sleep at night. That was that. Story 58. My grandfather spent a month in the hospital dying 3 hours away from me. It was a stressful and busy time. 2 days after the funeral, she complained that I do not buy her flowers anymore. I instantly lost all attraction to her. Story 59. She gained 150 pounds in 10 years. She had weight loss surgery and lost 60 pounds in 5 months, then gained 80 pounds over the next 7 months. She was not dealing with that anymore. Story 60. Traumatic brain injury changed him into a very different, unsafe, and unlikable person. He also refused to acknowledge that he had changed. The worst part? He had friends who agreed with him that he was fine and didn't need help. Story 61. Grabbing me and then beating the snot out of an old psychiatrist I had because I told him what the ex did. Story 62. Because she could not spend more than a day without being with her family, and it was reaching a point where I was working late to avoid spending time with her family. Story 63. Because I am stuck in minimum wage with student debt while our friends were buying houses and having children. Story 64. Her ego superseded her ability to do what was best for the family. 5 years later, everyone can see the complete downgrade it has caused for her. But she will never admit that she was wrong. Story 65. He decided that for my 29th birthday, it would be a great idea for his unemployed self to buy me a game at full price, Mortal Kombat 11 Special Edition at $120, instead of something cheaper using Afterpay, which he charged to my card without my consent. Then he played it for hours that night, constantly losing until his anger issues surfaced and he hit me, giving me a second unwanted present. Another unpleasant discovery was finding out later about all the messages he had been sending to other girls online throughout our entire 10-year relationship, and how his friends told me how much he resented being with me but did not want to be alone. Story 66. After a late miscarriage, she seemed withdrawn, checked out of the relationship and the world in general. She eventually quit graduate school and moved to live with a friend in another state. Story 67. Because he was doing things he should not have been doing, deal breaker things. He was mentally, physically, and sexually abusive. There are many more reasons, but that is all I will go into. I should have left him many years ago, but sometimes we hold on to things when deep down we know better. You cannot turn a frog into a prince. Story 68. She was not my top priority towards the end because I was focused on keeping up with grades, extracurricular activities, and spending time with friends. Combined with the fact that my parents did not allow us to hang out enough, and me not reciprocating her love due to distractions, she broke up with me. I regret it a lot, but now she is with a new guy who is allowed to do whatever he wants and has been with more than 8 people. She got with him a month after we broke up, and we dated for a year and a half. Story 69. I could list all the flaws that accumulated over the years, but it was their betrayal that finally decided it for me. Story 70. It was not good for me. He was aggressive. I suffered a lot until I understood that it was not for me. It was amazing, but finally the emotional dependence ended, and I was able to leave. Story 71. I have never broken up with anyone. I have only ever been broken up with. Then I got married 18 years ago and have not been broken up with since. My last ex broke up with me because she had a suicidally jealous friend who could not handle her having a boyfriend. It was a pretty sad situation. Story 72. He acted like everything was my fault. We were in a long-distance relationship. He lost his job because he was fired, and I think he ended up becoming homeless and blamed me for it. Story 73. Her explanation will be much more entertaining than mine. She is an extreme narcissist who lived in a fantasy world where everything was about her and how brilliant she was at life. Keep in mind, she was in her early 20s and still living at home because she was a student. Despite constantly having people with hidden agendas trying to bring her down from her lofty heights, she is too smart for them. She sees through their wicked plans and does what she can to get back at them. Story 74. We lived together. I felt like I was not part of the house. He yelled at me and said I was a child. I stopped talking to my mother because it bothered her. It was the same with friends, and since I am not one to go out, I preferred to live on the street. That is what I did. I left the house without money and spent 15 days sleeping on the sidewalk without money and working. When the 2 weeks ended, I recovered and left that city to start again alone. Story 75. When you are dating for about a year and a half and he still has not told his immediate family about me, invited me over, or worked on decluttering his living space to have me over, I would bring it up or offer to help, and all I got was no. I am happy with how things are. I am not happy. Goodbye. Story 76. He said, I love you like I love a favorite relative. After 30 years, we got a divorce. Thank you for telling me so quickly. Story 77. Because he would say, sorry, I promise I will never do it again. Then he always proceeded to do it again. Story 78. The most common thing that happens is the relationship runs its course. It was honestly the cleanest breakup either of us has had, all things considered. Story 79. I suspected she cheated on me, but of course I never accused her. She dropped hints like when I said cheating is a deal breaker and she would say, sorry, just kidding, among other things. Finally, she admitted it over text about a month before I was supposed to graduate with my bachelor's degree. I broke up with her and blocked her on everything. It was difficult because she was my first girlfriend after I realized I was gay. I was really in love with her, but there were a lot of red flags that I ignored. Story 80. Overly jealous of every woman around my age that I have talked with. No discussion has an end. Even after a long argument and reaching a conclusion, the issue always comes back. There is a lack of effort overall on gifts, dates, and so on. Story 81. Oh, lots of reasons. Top 5. 5. Constant negative attitude, petty vindictiveness, silent treatment, and resentment. Terrible with money, always buying into multi-level marketing scams, constantly needing to find herself, unable to keep a job, unable to maintain stable relationships with anyone in her life, especially bosses, friends, parents, and coworkers. Failure to apologize, sending inappropriate pictures to a random person on a word game. Story 82. No ambition to improve her quality of life, such as finding a better full-time job and having money to save. The family was a little crazy. A sliver of regret as she was basically very promiscuous. Anything goes anywhere, anytime. No idea what she is doing now and do not want to know either. Story 83. Because she was in such an aggressive hurry to have children, I felt more like an accessory to an end than a partner in a stable, long-term relationship. She also held some troubling views that I could not reconcile. Story 84. I found out she had been unfaithful to me for a long time. While I was working hard to provide for my family, she was meeting her old boyfriend. Story 85. She cheated on me with someone I was good friends with. I met the guy in high school and the friendship lasted a long time, only for it all to come crashing down because of her. Story 86. My first girlfriend cheated on me with her ex. She went with him to a motel to talk privately. Story 87. The same reason causes all ended relationships. If you have to ask yourself, does that person care about me? Then you need to walk away. Story 88. It's a wonder we ever got together in the first place. We traveled in completely opposite social circles. We met when we had one class together in college. She was pursuing a career in hotel, motel, and restaurant management. I was working on a heavy equipment diesel mechanic degree. She was the youngest of 5, and I was the oldest who cut ties with my family at 17 and joined the military. We made it 10 years before her family and my post-traumatic stress disorder from Vietnam became too much. Story 89. When we went to the beach for the weekend, I realized I had never felt more alone. He was emotionally unavailable. I ended it as soon as possible because I never shook that feeling at the beach. Story 90. I was unstable with my general anxiety, and he was a literal thinker who took the wind out of my adventurous sails, to put it plainly. We tried hard for each other but just couldn't get the recipe right after several years. I genuinely hope and wish that he is enjoying life and happy, and I know he would say the same for me. Story 91. She is a gaslighting, narcissistic person. I did not realize this until I became sober and things became very clear. Story 92. My last partner liked me but couldn't see herself being with me for much longer. We both knew it was coming. So we went out for a nice date, exchanged Valentine's gifts, and broke up in the morning. I still think about her often. Story 93. Rule for the not for me, telling me how to be a man despite her growing up without a stable male role model, mood swings, and a general deal with it attitude toward her lack of emotional regulation. Story 94. A few phrases to describe why. Her occupation interfered with almost everything related to our relationship. There was a large age difference, me at 21 and her at 29. Different expectations and goals, long distance, poor communication, and weak problem-solving skills. Story 95. He, 22 at the time we got together, would never make any effort and always tried to blame it on, well, I've never been in a relationship before. I let certain things go in the beginning for that reason until I realized it was just his excuse to be a bad person. I stayed with him for 3 years, and things only got worse. I had to initiate everything, pay for things, and take care of him when he was unwell. Meanwhile, he would say things like, I'm not going to call you beautiful because it'll just go to your head, or call me overweight or dumb, then ditch me for his friends. He also let his family verbally abuse me every time I was over. Story 96. Brainwashed by another man. Sadly, it took about 2 years and a child for her to realize it, or for him to reveal his true colors clearly enough to stand out to her like a sore thumb. Story 97. First one. I was too immature, so she ended up dumping me after 4 years. Second, we wanted different things in life. She was 7 years older than me, so we broke up after 2 years. Third one. I broke up after 2 years because I wasn't ready to commit. To be honest, it scared me. Fourth one. She was an alcoholic, so I ended up breaking up to save my sanity after 8 months. Now I'm married, and all is good. It has been a wild ride. Story 98. I went into debt supporting our family. Then, when she received a large sum of $500,000, she got a new boyfriend who attended to her desires, while I worked late to pay off our debts without her help. I am over $100,000 in debt. Story 99. Too much senseless complaining. She sent her assistants after me to try to convince me to just tolerate it. Then she revealed her true nature, and one of her assistants came to me to say how badly she had treated him. So I asked him why he was not willing to tolerate it as he had told me to do. What is good for the goose is not good for the gander. Story 100. Simple. She isn't content with me anymore. She found a guy who meets her new standards. That's why we didn't have an argument when we broke up. She just left me hanging. To this day, I'm still bitter about what she did to me. I loved her unconditionally and faithfully, yet she left me to find someone else. I have been single for almost 2 years now and am still struggling to move on. She had a new boyfriend 3 months after our breakup. Story 101. Most of the time, things did not work out. It happens. Sometimes, I was unaware and did not realize what was right in front of me. That happens too. At least twice, the other person was just unpleasant. One had planned to leave me and had been unfaithful from the start. Both were abusive. At one point, one became inconsolably angry over something, literally the week before officially meeting her next husband's parents. With the other, I simply did not want to work things out. In short, just because it is not the worst relationship ever does not mean I do not deserve better. Story 102. Verbally and emotionally abusive, dishonest, it seemed he had a whole other life when I was not around. Gradually, I discovered things that made me realize he was not the man I thought I had married. Story 103. I realized years later that she understood quickly that we both could not communicate with each other. We could not tell the other that we wanted more of one thing and less of another. It made sense. It caused a lot of self-destruction on both sides, more on one than the other. Story 104. Usually because they leave me. I don't think I've ever dumped anyone, not anyone I dated for more than a month or two. Story 105. She decided that because it was someone's birthday, she should give him a present of intimacy. We were married and trying to conceive. Story 106. She cheated when I explicitly told her that if either of us ever cheats, we would just break up. Lo and behold, she did. Story 107. I had many insecurities and emotional baggage that I was not able to properly handle or support. I am also not a big planner or self-starter. For example, it was always my idea to go places and do things. It is unfortunate because he is the best man I know, treated me very kindly, and I trust him a lot. Story 108. We were planning to get engaged, but he told me that his mother does not approve, and he is 35 years old now. Story 109. Mental illness was treated like a scandal in her family. I have other theories about it, but that was the beginning. I have been alone ever since and worried that I am completely broken now. Story 110. He was not ready to seriously get involved in our relationship. He was finally ready 2 years after we broke up, but it was too late for me. Story 111. Every reason she could imagine, even the ones that were not true. In reality, she could not handle the stress of our situation, so she got rid of the one stressor she had control over. Well, for if you count my children. Story 112. It's all pretty much my fault. I am too emotionally damaged to maintain a healthy relationship and only recently realized the extent of that. Story 113. She asked me to think about having a child together, and I did. I pretended I was our child and imagined being in the room while she said things she had said to me before, like being sick because I changed the thermostat, or knowing why I was sick when I had stomach problems, blaming it on me not listening to her about what I was allowed to buy at the grocery store. I thought about what it would feel like to hear her say those things as a child, and it was terrifying. So I left. Story 114. I knew it was the end when, coming back from a long business trip and a 21-hour flight, I could barely get in the front door. Once I did manage to get in, the mess was unimaginable. I asked if she could have made a little effort so I could get in and not have to find a place for my feet when actually in the house. Her response: "If you don't like it, don't come home." Story 115. I found out she was pregnant and I was not the father. I learned this the day after Christmas. Since then, I have lost all confidence in my ability to find someone. Story 116. I wanted children. She gave up on that dream without giving me a choice. We peacefully went our separate ways. Story 117. Once my paychecks went into our joint account, I never saw a penny. He spent it all and claimed we could not even afford a $10 a week allowance for me from my own paycheck. I was also doing all the cooking, cleaning, laundry, and other chores while working full-time and going to college. Leaving was a massive relief. Story 118. I was the other woman and discovered he was engaged and also talking to 3 other women. Yes, I informed the fiancé. Story 119. She was way too touchy-feely for me. It was exciting at first, but spontaneously holding my hips from behind and draping herself all over me in private or public felt like I couldn't breathe. I asked her several times to give me space, but that wasn't an option for her. Story 120. She used my addiction to manipulate, use, and abuse me until I was completely done with life. I ended it before heading into rehabilitation and will be coming up on 6 years sober this October. Looking back now with a clear head, I fully understand just how horrible a person she was. I know I deserve better, but I still have some lingering trust issues that prevent me from letting someone get too close. This is something I still need to work on. Story 121. I had served my purpose. She only wanted money from that point. Spoiler alert. My assets were in a trust, and she could not access them. I ended up with primary custody of our children, and she ended up paying child support. Story 122. I got tired of breadcrumbs and being manipulated. I've always been very independent, and he kept manipulating me into depending on him. That wouldn't be a bad thing. We're there to help each other after all. Except when I needed him, he wasn't there. Whenever I confronted him, he would either victimize himself, saying that's just how he is and that he suffers because of it, or make excuses, ask for forgiveness, and promise to change. He also reacted harshly to things I found important. At one point, he had problems where he was renting and literally preferred to move in with his drug addict friend rather than work on our relationship and move in together. His friend was in a really bad spot and it didn't end well. What finally broke me was when he said that I loved him more than he loved me. He was right. It still hurts to put into words after 5 years. Anyway, I'm now with someone who loves me deeply and is incredibly devoted. He has given me the safety I needed for a lot of self-development. I love him back and wouldn't change this for the world. I do admit I miss the highs from that previous relationship. Emotional abuse is addictive. Story 123. He is an alcoholic who relapsed and has anger problems while drinking, as well as a drunk driving problem. I went through all of that with him before he sobered up years ago. However, we have a child now who does not need to see his father like that. One day, I had to call the police. He admitted he hit me and was arrested. I packed some bags and left that day with our child. I obtained a restraining order. Story 124. The moment I said I did not like Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., I still voted for him, but I told her, I do not want anyone past retirement age to be in charge of a country. She heard, I am a Donald John Trump supporter. Story 125. Oof, been single so long that I almost forgot. 3 or maybe 4 years ago, he told me that he was gay. No judgment, kind of already knew anyway. Hope him and his boyfriend are still going strong. Cute couple. Story 126. His pregnant ex, not exactly an ex but separated and possibly getting divorced, had their in vitro fertilization baby. He was 100% single and available and a platonic friend when I got together with him. Story 127. He was strategically manipulative and insecure. He would ask a question, then question my answer. I would explain it clearly and he would question that too. I continued explaining each time he questioned me, as if he was looking for something that wasn't there. He would push until I became frustrated, then act like the victim because he was just asking a question. This happened with something new almost every week. At some point during the relationship, he told me that if I ever slept with anyone else after we broke up or took a break, he would never take me back. When we did take a break, he paid someone with weed to sleep with him and cried out of guilt when I found out. He also told me that if I were with anybody else romantically, they would have cheated on me by now, so I should consider myself lucky to be with him. By the end of the relationship, after he slept with someone else, he told me he was more concerned about what my family would think of him than what I do. I am glad that was all over. I know there were many other issues that I have blocked out and forgotten over time, but he was very problematic. Story 128. Sad about his ex, which is fine. I did not say I did anything wrong when I asked him, but something tells me that I did, and he is too kind to tell me otherwise. Story 129. She feels I neglected her when I played games at night. She feels I did not give enough attention to her. I feel like I did give her enough. I wanted to take her out on dates, but she cannot because she has strict parents. The only way for me to show her attention was to text her. Personally, I feel she had too much time. She ended the relationship. I did not try to fight for it. She says, I am a woman. Women do not pursue. So yeah, that happened. We both dodged a bullet, I guess. She dodged me and I dodged her. Story 130. He is a negative person, always unhappy about everything. He could not just be happy to be alive every day, happy to have children, a house, a job, or life in general. Everything was depressing with him, and I felt life was much happier without him. Story 131. The first person was an alcoholic, and I could not deal with it after a while. We are still friends. She still struggles with alcohol. The second person was a con artist. I was the target, and we are no longer friends. Story 132. Maybe our love story had more plot holes than a Netflix series canceled after one season, but no regrets. I am happy and have moved on. Story 133. Because they were insecure and I couldn't manage that, I gave them the bare minimum until we both had enough. Story 134. People can be difficult, as Sheldon might say. I've noticed that many people like or love someone and, in order to be accepted, suppress parts of their character or exaggerate things they cannot maintain. Eventually, reality sets in, and they say, I can't change who I am for someone. I need to be myself, which is fair, but dishonesty should be avoided. If you want to be with someone, be honest about your less favorable traits. Let them see your true self early so they understand what they are dealing with. This honesty does not guarantee that they won't suppress their own sides, but at least you are truthful. There are no absolutes, and sometimes people simply drift apart. It is not necessarily a bad thing as long as it is civil and no one suffers more than a heartbreak for a while. Story 135. I sound like the bitter ex, but I believe he is dealing with narcissistic personality disorder. There is not an ounce of empathy in that man's head. Story 136. She was just inattentive, emotionally unavailable, dismissive, avoidant, and autistic. She had childhood trauma and was a bit of a narcissist too. But I loved her very deeply. She was already gone and with someone else. I am very sad about it all. She told me she was safe to fall in love with. I did everything right. Story 137. She was not a partner. She said I did not have her back. But she never had mine. She faulted me for bringing people into our relationship until one night she recorded me, which was already a deal breaker. Then she involved her lesbian friend, who approached us for a threesome on the phone before I left. She also texted her ex every time we had a problem. She brought him up to make me jealous and acted like she was being honest, but he was crazy, and that was all it was. I felt like I was swimming upstream against the current of other men. Story 138. We just never got the timing right. After 3 years apart, we reconnected as nearly different people, people who have grown up and developed a sense of maturity. I never stopped being attracted to him, and he said the same about me. So we are exploring the possibilities again with fresh slates. I would be lying if I said I did not really want it to work out. But good things take time, so if that is what is necessary, I am happy to oblige. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.